Story. HOA tried forcing me to sell my ranch, but I drafted the state law they tried using on me. The sun hadn't yet risen when I found the first letter nailed to my barn door. Sell or face the law? It read. Signed by the Willow Creek HOA. My name's Caleb Ward, and my 200-acre ranch in Montana had been in my family for 4 generations. The Karens, Victoria and James Karen, siblings who'd moved from Seattle with their gated community dreams, wanted my land to expand their shiny subdivision. They'd already bullied half the valley into selling, but I wasn't budging. That's when they got creative. Victoria, all sharp heels and sharper words, showed up with a county ordinance in hand, claiming my ranch violated new land use laws. "This is progress, Mr. Ward," she sneered, waving the paper like a weapon. James, her brother, stood behind her, smirking, his Rolex glinting in the sun. They thought they had me cornered, citing a state law that allowed HOAs to force sales for community benefit. What they didn't know, I'd helped draft that law 20 years ago as a young lawyer, before I traded suits for saddles. And I'd built in a loophole they'd never see coming. The fight escalated fast. They dragged me to court, claiming my ranch was a blight on their vision of manicured lawns and cul-de-sacs. The courtroom was a circus. Locals packed the pews, whispering about the Karens' strong-arm tactics. Victoria testified, her voice dripping with fake concern. "We're building a future for families," she said, eyes flicking to the judge. James doubled down, flashing spreadsheets of projected profits. I sat silent, my lawyer, a grizzled old friend named Hank, grinning like he knew something they didn't. Then came the twist. Mid-trial, a stranger slipped into the courtroom. Ellie, a quiet woman in her 60s, clutching a faded photo. She wasn't on the witness list, but Hank called her up. Gasps rippled through the room. Ellie revealed she'd been the Karens' childhood nanny, fired without warning when their parents' estate was sold to developers. "They've done this before," she said, voice trembling. "They forced families out back in Seattle, too. It's not progress, it's greed." She held up the photo, a young Victoria and James, grinning beside a for sale sign on her old home. The jury's faces hardened. That bombshell shifted everything. The Karens' polished facade cracked. Victoria's composure faltered, and James snapped at his lawyer. But they pressed on, banking on that state law. When my turn came, I stood and spoke plainly. "I wrote that law to protect ranchers, not destroy them," I said. Section 47.3, paragraph C. Any forced sale requires unanimous community consent, including the landowner. The courtroom went dead silent. The Karens hadn't read the fine print. I was the community, and I sure as hell didn't consent. The judge ruled in my favor. Cheers erupted from the locals, but victory felt hollow. I'd saved my ranch, but the Karens weren't done. That night, I found my fences cut, my cattle scattered. No proof, but I knew who'd done it. Worse, Ellie vanished, leaving a note. "They'll never stop. Be careful." I tracked her down weeks later, living in a trailer, scared silent. The Karens had threatened her into hiding. Months passed, and the subdivision crept closer, swallowing neighbors' land. I stood on my porch, watching their bulldozers churn the earth, my heart heavy. I'd won the battle, but the war was eating the valley alive. The Karens didn't need to win in court. They had money, lawyers, and time. My loophole held for now, but for how long? My ranch, my home, felt like a lone island in a sea of greed. The bitter truth sank in. Laws, even ones I wrote, couldn't stop people like the Karens forever. They'd chip away until the valley was theirs, erasing families, history, and open skies. I'd fought with everything: wit, grit, even a ghost from their past, but the cost was steep. Friends moved away, Ellie stayed gone, and I woke each day wondering if I'd find another letter on my barn. In the end, I'm still here, boots planted on my land, but the fights left scars. I wonder if I'd done more, rallied the valley sooner, exposed the Karens' past louder. Could I have stopped them for good? Or was this always the way it'd end? One man against a machine that never quits. What do you think? Can one person hold back a tide like that? Or is justice just a delay of the inevitable? Share your thoughts.